What's up, ladies and gentlemen? The Brew with Matt and Mike is back. And before we get into it, Mike, let's give you a little update before we talk about that Providence game, before we talk about the TCU loss. Let's talk about you for a second. You got a big thing going on today, a 3-on-3 tournament down in Mexico. Just talk about that and yeah, what's on the docket? We'll throw that
Uh,
video, the live stream of that in the link if you guys want to check it out. But yeah,
yeah, that would be great. So for me, it's been a project that's been going on for almost a year now. I officially changed my FIBA status to Puerto Rican, to represent the Puerto Rico national team, and get to do my first international tournament down here. So we're down in León, Guanajuato. I'm kind of in the center of Mexico, and it's called the AmeriCup. So it's all teams from all Latin America, South America, and the United States and North America. So yeah, we got our first game against Jamaica today at 3, and then we play the island rivalry of Dominican Republic at 5:30 Central Time. So get to do that, get my feet wet for this international competition in 3x3, and man, I'm just super excited. We've had a pretty intense training camp for the last couple of weeks, and we've been down here since Tuesday, and man, I'm ready to go.
let's go. Yeah, Mike's schedule has been quite grueling, so I'm excited for you to finally get to play in a game rather than just training your ass off. So that's going to be
Yeah.
nice. But yeah, definitely going to throw it down in the link below. We're recording this at about 12:18 Central Time. We'll hopefully get this out in an hour or two, and hopefully you guys have time to check it out. But let's get right into the game now with Providence, and then we'll get more into the TCU game. But Providence, a little bit of a cold start from deep against Providence, but ended up shooting 35% on the game, which might be a really good percentage for this team moving forward. I think if we can shoot 35 as a team, that'd be a wonderful thing. But 104-83, unbelievable performance from Nick Boyd. Mike, give me your thoughts on how Wisconsin performed against Providence before we talk about TCU.
It was a good game. Start of the game, it was very back and forth. Both teams were kind of feeling each other out after a few days off, and it was one of those games where everything seemed to kind of go super well for Nick Boyd. The ball fell in his lap a couple of different times, as well as he was just in absolute attack mode. I'm getting to the rim. I'm touching paint. I'm touching the paint as many times as I can in transition, out of ball screens, everything like that. So it seemed like it was his game to take, and he took it. And then the other thing is Austin Rapp showed up, and he got busy from the 3-point line. He heated up there, which was great to see. From him, he needed that confidence, especially coming off of a difficult game against BYU. So it was good to see that he needed to get that going. And then once again, Nolan Winter coming with another double double. He's just been doing his thing. He shot the ball extremely well around the paint. I feel like Providence just didn't have the bigs to kind of hold up against him, his athleticism and everything like that. So great to see. John Blackwell was a little bit cold, but he didn't really need to be the main focal point as Nick Boyd really took the show. Scoring in bunches. He took a bunch of shots. I think he took almost 25 shots, but he dished out 7 assists. I think quite a few of those were to Austin Rapp, but he was also moving the ball and touching the paint is really what he was doing really well. And yeah, just it got going there in the second half, and you could see like, all right, the pressure that those two guards are putting on those teams really struggled for Providence.
Yeah, and 36 points, 7 boards, 7 assists, 0 turnovers. Unbelievable game. But
Tough.
in today's day and age, a game that happened 2 days ago becomes old news quickly. So yeah,
It does.
Wisconsin to me looks like a streaky team. But let's get into the TCU game and dissect that a little bit more. So Wisconsin lost 74-63, and for me, yeah, TCU came out playing unbelievable on both sides of the floor. They couldn't miss in the first half, and I believe they only had 1 turnover at the half, while Wisconsin, I think, was probably close to 10 turnovers at the half. TCU's defense for this point in the season looks super high level, super aggressive. And Mike, the first question I want to ask you is Wisconsin, with their kind of free-flowing European exchange offense, you had TCU, who was being super aggressive, jumping, Boyd and Blackwell, doubling them, trying to get in the passing lanes. What would you have liked to see Wisconsin do different or adjust when they were facing those aggressive double teams? Because they really had no answer, and they were not finding good looks at all.
Yeah, especially in the first part of that first half. Jamie Dixon, a former Pitt coach, doing a heck of a job down there at TCU. I know they've made the tournament quite a few times, but we were talking about a little bit before the show of just, him doing it in the portal and having such a connective defense. And, they were blitzing ball screens, especially going to the left. Both Blackwell and Boyd love going to that left hand. They're very left hand dominant, especially attacking downhill. So they did a great job of blitzing those. And then they stacked. So the strong side is they usually try to kind of pack the paint elbows and boxes a little bit on that strong side. And then out of the blitz, what they did is they played 2-on-1 on the backside, and then the man who blitzed, he had to go all the way back to the corner. So he would rotate all the way to the backside, which is it's very complicated to do. And if you don't have a team that's athletic enough to do it, you can get exposed really, really quickly. TCU was athletic enough to do it. They got out of those double teams. Wisconsin would swing it, and they couldn't quite figure out what to do with it. A few different times they tried to keep Winter at the top, and then they would dive him to the basket. And then that man in the middle that was on the backside on 2-on-1, he would eventually rotate to the outside shooter, but he would hang a little bit further. He would stay a little bit longer and pause, allowing their big to get back to Winter. For me, I know some of this stuff is a little bit more complicated in terms of as you get older, you see it more. This is much more of a Spanish-style defense to, that next man up. This is something that you see a lot in Spain, actually. And one thing I would have liked to see, especially on that backside, is I would have inverted the bigs, and I would have put Winter in the corner, and I would have had one of my other wings or shooters there, because I would have dove Winter out of the corner for that automatic lob threat. If you can throw the ball over the top and get a couple of dunks that way, or a couple of dump downs on that, especially for a big who can finish, it makes things extremely, extremely difficult. And then that allows you to have actually some cleaner looks up top. But Wisconsin hasn't seen that style of defense. And to be honest with you, I haven't seen that style of defense in college recently. So it's pretty extensive. And they were able to figure some stuff out later in that second half. Later in the second part of the first half, where they went on their run. Blackwell was getting busy, especially getting to the foul line. A game of free throw merchant, absolute free throw merchant this game. So it's good to see. And then the biggest thing is that start of the second half, they came out a little bit flat-footed, and were never really able to make up that ground.
Yeah. So when you look at this Wisconsin team, and we've seen them against some high major opponents, has your ceiling for this team changed?
Maybe a little bit, just in terms of I've been watching a little bit more college basketball and some of the teams in the Big Ten. This weekend allowed me to kind of catch up on what was going on around the country, and seeing what Michigan did in the Players Era tournament, and just absolutely shellacking everybody. And seeing some of their bigs, as well as, seeing what Purdue has, seeing what other teams in the Big Ten have. We'll see what happens when the Big Ten shows out. I'm still high on the Badgers. I still think they're a top 5 team in the Big Ten. Nothing has really changed in that aspect. It's just they got to be a little bit more consistent, and they are a young team outside of those that three-headed monster. The others are a little bit young, or just a little bit young in terms of the system. They have older players and everything like that, but not everybody's gone through this Big Ten grind. And so we'll see what happens with them during the year. And the biggest thing is can Rapp continue to shoot the ball really well? Can Andrew Rohde really find a consistent role for himself? Being that 8 to 10 point scorer for them. If they can find him 8 to 10 points a game, that would be great. As well as can Nolan Winter find his jumper? Those are the 3 things that are a little bit up in the air for me. And if those things come together, man, I think they're a top 4 team. Get that double bye in the Big Ten tournament, be a top 3 seed, top 3-4 seed in the NCAA tournament.
For that to happen, yes, guys need to start shooting better, but Nolan Winter needs to take a huge step, right? Like, he needs to knock down the open 3. He is not taking a lot of tough threes. He is shooting wide open threes, and he is shooting 15.8% from 3 on 2.7 attempts per game through 7 games. So that to me, with Nolan Winter not taking the jump that I expected him to make, I mean, don't get me wrong, he is rebounding the ball quite well. He's blocking some shots. He's averaging 13.3 points per game. His 2-point percentage is 76.2. Like, that's all really good. But he's just not the dynamics in his game haven't evolved like I expected them to when it comes to putting the ball on the floor and just knocking down the open look a little bit more. And those two things kind of go together. If he knocks down the open look, then he can put the ball down on the floor. But he feels at least. I don't think he'll be doing that this year at a high level. Maybe next year, and I think he can still improve a lot this year. But I don't see him being that dynamic big to put the ball down on the floor right now. But yeah, just shooting with this Wisconsin team is interesting. Right now in the season, 33%, 33.0%. And then from the free throw line, they're 78.8%, which is 17th in the country. And I always say that. I believe that your free throw percentage is usually a pretty good indicator of how good of a shooter you are. And you have Nick Boyd at 80.6%. You have Blackwell at 80.4%. Those two are shooting well. But Nolan Winter is 83.3% from the free throw line this year. Like, he's got to have a little bit more. But Mike, can you get a little bit more granular with your basketball knowledge and just talk about what you're seeing with Nolan Winter's jump shot and what's going wrong with him right now from deep?
To be honest with me, I've tried to look at his jumper and some of his threes, and I've really like slowed it down and see. And some of it is his release point. He's a tall guy, he's almost a 7-footer. And my dad, I'm gonna shout out Papa Brew here for a second. When I shoot the ball extremely well, my dad always used to tell me, shoot it out of a phone booth. So get the ball up. And right now, Nolan is shooting a lot of laser beams. He's shooting a lot of, he overextends his arm more direct towards the basket instead of up. And that's one thing that, is his fluidity on a shot is okay. Like I've seen the last couple, in the last couple of games, he took off the dribble three. In terms of his shot mechanics, they look good in terms of where the ball is on his hand, in terms of his finish. But I would just like to see his arm angle improve more vertical and less horizontal. And the other thing is this would be a tip that I would give him if I was in the gym with him, is either count to 3 when you're shooting or sing your favorite song. For me, I know there's a direct correlation that goes on with your brain. If you're singing, you actually can't understand pressure. Your brain can't do two things at once. Singing is very complicated. Music is very complicated, and it's a psychological thing. So, if for me, especially if I'm getting in big pressure situations and I know I got to take free throws, I usually sing one of my favorite songs from Jay-Z. I got a couple tricks that way. And for me, I would actually tell him to, and I know for me too, is a trick that I use for when I'm shooting is when I catch the ball, to make sure my shot timing is correct. I just count 1, 2, 3 in my head, like 1, 2, 3, shot. Make sure that timing is correct. And then I also always tell myself I'm not a good enough shooter to just flick the basketball. I have to stand there like a statue, and I have to shoot out of a phone booth. You got to get the ball up. If it's an interesting concept. If you look at a waste paper basket and you're standing over it, it looks giant. But if you put it up in front of your nose, the hole gets smaller, right? The basket gets smaller. So the higher you shoot the ball, the more likely it is you're going to have softer touch. And for Nolan Winter right now, he's just got to get a little bit more arc on the basketball. He's got to get his hips underneath him. And I would love to see his arm angle just change just a little bit more up than out. And I think if he does that, he'll find some more success, because he does have great mechanics. He in terms of his base, I would make it a little bit wider, but also it's what's comfortable for him. Everybody's got a little bit of a different jump shot. Everybody's got a little bit of a different release. But the biggest thing for me is he's got to get the ball up. He's got to get more arc. And when he does that, he shoots the ball well. Like I watched some of his shots last year. He has a few times where he gets laser beams thrown at the basket. It gets to about 10 foot 6 inches, and it's like, man, you're already 7 foot. You should be able to get the ball to 11 feet 6 inches, 12 feet above the rim, and I think you'll have more success that way. And then the other thing is mental. It's how much work did you prepare this season in that jumper, right? Like I think he worked a lot on his body. I feel like he puts in work. Everybody talks about his work ethic, and I think he did a great job of that. It's just now it's trusting the work and knowing like, hey, I can make shots, even though he hasn't. Right? He's going through the slump, and that's hard. That's a challenge. Like the mental aspect of being in a shooting slump is difficult. So for me, it's hey, start with your base. make sure your arm angle changes and get the ball up. Those are three things. He can change mechanically. It kind of messes with your shot. And that's the thing in the middle of the season that gets a little bit complicated, is trying to do that. So for him and for the coaching staff, it's, hey, we're going to try and change your trajectory and maybe your arm angle. Those are the two things you can work with on day one. Hey, get the ball up, get the ball up, get the ball up. Make it something super simple. When I'm working with people or training guys, I always talk about your foot mechanics too, is make sure you find energy with your feet. Push off your big toe. Find energy in that big toe and get the ball up. And that's the thing that you can kind of work with is, depending on how he's feeling, what he feels his shot is at. I haven't been in the gym with him, so these are just me ideas that I would have if I was training him, looking at his film. But those are the biggest things. Hey, I would say for me is shot angle, arc, and finding more energy with his feet, and should be good.
We need to bring Mike back to Wisconsin. It's been a long time coming. I think he's been back once after his senior year in 2013. I think you were there in 13-14. We're at a practice. We need to bring Mike back. And Mike, you guys can hear it, the viewers. Mike has a super high basketball IQ. He's also just a good vibe. So I think Wisconsin should definitely bring you back in, and you can talk to the guys a little bit, because that's really valuable insight that you just provided right there. That'd be great if you can come on in, perhaps later this winter if you're back in town. But yeah, the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap this up is something that I don't like from this Wisconsin team. And yes, it's more fun to watch this offense than it was, say, 3-4 years ago, or the Ethan Happ era. For me, Ethan Happ, wonderful player, but boy, was that offense ugly. Feeding him the ball 17 feet away from the hoop, pound, pump fake, reverse pivot, put the ball in with some crazy spin. Ugly. But this offense, I feel like these kids take advantage a little bit of the fact that Gard gives them more freedom, where once they get down big, they start pressing. And they did it last year against BYU in the tournament. They did it against BYU this year. They try to get it all back at once, where they just start playing helter-skelter. They play chaotic on offense, where like Nick Boyd had a step back 27-footer with zero passes into the possession. Like, I know you want to play faster, you want to shoot more threes, but you got to still work for a decent shot. So that's one thing I don't like, is they try playing hero ball. They get a little bit selfish, and they try getting it all back at once. So do you have any insight there? Did you see a little bit of that as well?
Yeah, there was a few shots. There was a out of bounds play where I think Carrington took kind of a tough three in the right hand corner, right in front of the bench. There are times where Rapp gets an okay look. He has some airspace, but he hasn't maybe hit one in a little bit, and especially on the swings, like I've talked about it multiple times on this show. He's a much better shooter when the ball goes inside out to him, where he can get, and especially he shoots extremely well when his left foot is the first foot he puts down. So he had a really nice pick and pop on the left side of the floor, right in front of the TCU bench, put his left foot down, right foot down, pure, beautiful jump shot. So sometimes that happens, and you can kind of see there are some times, I mean, John Blackwell, when they went to their smaller lineup in the second half, John Blackwell got inside and he was clearly smothered, right? And he's like, 6'2", 6'3", and they had a couple of 6'10", 6'11 guys there. He still tried to go get a shot up instead of passing it around, maybe finding it out. There was some fluidity issues, and I think part of the thing that makes Nick Boyd really, really good is that alpha, that dog, that I can go and get this, and I might be the best player on the floor. But there is also, the things that make you great are sometimes can be ghosts of things that are not always the best things for you, right? And so for him, some of that kind of rubs off to some of those guys where he presses a lot. And you got to see if he can kind of rein some of that in, especially with the younger guys. Rapp is still getting his feet wet at a high major level. We're 7 games in. Hopefully he can start to feel a little bit more comfortable, but you can see the game is still really fast for him, especially when he puts the ball on the deck. He gets 2-3 dribbles and then tries to make a play. It's no bueno. He just doesn't have it yet, and that's okay. He can grow into that. He will get into that hopefully as he ages, as he gets more reps. So overall, I think, yeah, Gard lets them play, and he does let them have a looser leash, which is great. It allows them to feel free flowing, but as a collective, they got to figure out, yes, we are free flowing. Yes, we are allowed to have that shot, but just because we're down 12, And it doesn't mean we have to press him. Like you said, that feeling of getting it all back, I've been on teams like that. And the best teams are ones that can look each other in the huddle after a dead ball and say, hey, it's okay. We got to win this possession, and then we got to win on a defensive possession. And you just got to keep that mentality of, hey, I got to win one possession. I don't got to win 5 possessions here. This is the possession that's most important. I have to win this, and then we got to go down on defense, and we got to win. And that's the thing is when you start to get into maturity as a basketball player, you start to understand you can win possessions and you only have to win a certain percentage of them, especially late games. So, when they got down to, it was almost 20, right? They were pressing, and then all of a sudden they found a little bit of life. And it's funny, one of the biggest shots that TCU hit was when they were up 12. It felt like all the momentum was going to Wisconsin, and then TCU hit a big corner 3. And you could hear the announcers. They were like, "Oh, that was a big shot," and it was, because you could tell that if they were able to get it under 10, Wisconsin felt like they were going to come back and be able to put the clamps on them and put much more pressure on TCU.
Yeah, no, this was a great episode of the Brew. Mike has to go and get ready to hoop later today, so we'll wrap it up right there. But yeah, hit that subscribe button, and best of luck, Mike.
Hey, thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy holidays. Matt, to you and yours. Appreciate you as always. And hopefully we'll talk again. I'll have a nice gold medal around my neck.
Let's go. Yes, sir. All right. Have a good one, everybody.